bleeding from an injured vessel. When the vessel will be injured, then the bleeding can be stopped. That process is known as the hemostasis. And generally, this hemostasis are the mechanism of the hemostasis are divided into three categories. One is your first, when there will be any injury to the blood vessels, thereafter the three mechanism will be started rapidly. That is, the first one is your vasoconstriction, yeah, vascular spasm. Second one is your platelet plug formation, and the third one is your formation of blood coagulation process, or formation of blood clot. Okay, so during the when the one vessel is injured, when there will be endothelial cells damage has been damaged, at that time the sub endothelial matrix that will be exposed. Okay, and thereafter suddenly what will happen, three mechanism will be started. First one is your vasoconstriction, that means the constriction of blood vessels will be there. Okay, so the first mechanism of hemostasis is your vasoconstriction, in which there will be constriction of the blood vessels. So that will be what it causes, now it will stops or decrease the flow of blood. Okay, so firstly there will be constriction of the blood vessel. It is the first mechanism of hemostasis. Okay, so this vasoconstriction, yeah, vascular spasm can be possible by thromboxane and the serotonin, thromboxane A2 and serotonin. These thromboxane A2 and serotonin, they are actually secreted by platelets. Okay, so we'll discuss about the platelet structure, different function of the platelets, and the how this temporary hemostasis can be possible by these platelets only. Okay, so when there will be any minor injury, at that time this hemostasis process can be occurred, yeah, can be processed by the platelets. Okay, so you can say the first mechanism of the vasoconstriction, yeah, constriction of the blood vessels, which decreases the flow, that can be carried out by the platelet also, and by secreting chemicals that is known as the thromboxane A2 and as well as serotonin, that will be secreted, and it will causes the constriction of the blood vessels. So it is generally considered as the temporary hemostasis that will be carried out by the platelet. The second mechanism is your formation of platelet plug. Okay, so platelet plug formation I will tell in detail. So platelet plug formation and the vasoconstriction, these two mechanisms are generally referred or considered as temporary hemostasis or primary hemostasis. So whenever there will be any injury to the blood vessels, at that time firstly there will be vasoconstriction, which is the flow of blood, and secondly there will be platelet plug formation, so that will see damaged blood vessels, but it will be considered as the temporary hemostasis. When there will be any major type of injury to the blood vessels will be there, this temporary hemostasis cannot stop the bleeding. At that time the blood coagulation process is required, that is the formation of clot is required, and that too, the third mechanism, that is the formation of the clot, yeah, with the help of the blood coagulation factor, that is generally considered as the permanent hemostasis. Yeah, it is generally referred as secondary hemostasis. Did you get my point? Did you get my point? Say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Whenever there will be any injury to the blood vessels, three mechanisms will be operating. First one is your vasoconstrictions, and second one is platelet plug formation. This vasoconstriction, just a minute. So vasoconstrictions and platelet plug formations are generally considered as the primary hemostasis, as well as it is a temporary hemostasis. So whenever there will be any minor type of injury, then there can be the platelet help in the particular process by sealing the particular damaged blood vessels. Now come to the structure of this platelets. That is generally is like that of the other cells, like your red blood cells, like your white blood cells. They are also originating from the pluripotent hematopoietic stem cells. Okay, so they are originations, that is the platelets. They are also originating from the pluripotent hematopoietic stem cells. These pluripotent hematopoietic stem cells can give rise to committed stem cells. Committed stem cells then give rise to pro-megakaryoblast. Pro-megakaryoblast give rise to megakaryoblast. Megakaryoblast give rise to megakaryocyte. So you can see in the second slide, this is the picture of a mature megakaryocytes having the cytoplasm. Also, they are having the nucleus. The purple one, it is the nucleus. Okay, so the origination of the platelets, the origination of the formation of the platelets are again the bone marrow, the stem cells of the bone marrow. But the steps are like pluripotent hematopoietic stem cells give rise to committed stem cells, then pro-megakaryoblast. Pro-megakaryoblast give rise to megakaryoblast. Then it will be give rise to a mature megakaryocyte, and from this mature megakaryocyte, the platelets are formed by pinching off a bit of cytoplasm from this actual, the mature megakaryocyte. So you can see this platelet release. The nucleus has been expelled out, and there will be the site from the cytoplasm. It will be pinched up, and there will be formation of 100 to 1000 platelets. Okay. So platelets are the non-nucleated cells. They are formed by pinching off a bit of cytoplasm. So when there will be formation of the platelets from this mature megakaryocyte, some cytoplasm, a bit of has been pinched out. Okay, and in the whole there will be no nucleus will be there. The nucleus will be expelled out. Okay, so that's why that are formed from the cytoplasm of the your mature megakaryocyte. They are having no nucleus. So the platelets are generally considered as the non-nucleated cells, and their shapes are when means their shapes are depending on the stages of activity. When they are in the resting condition, they will be generally disc shaped, and when they will be in the active state, their shape will be spherical. So their shape varies, yeah, depends on the stages of activity. Okay, so in this way the platelets are formed. If we go to the structure of the platelets, so these are the disc shaped cells. They are formed from the you can say the fragments, yeah, from the bit of cytoplasm that has been pieced out from a mature megakaryocyte, and that may be give rise to 100 to 1000 number of platelets. Okay, so then come to the structure of the platelets. They are having the cell membrane. Below the cell membrane, there will be having a microtubule like structure, which is made of a special protein that is known as tubulin. Okay, so this is the structure of platelets containing the other organelles like your ribosome. They are having the ribosome. They are having the mitochondria. Means mitochondria means they will be supplying the energy in the form of ATP. They are having the cell membrane. Below, just beneath the cell membrane, there will be a structure that is known as the microtubule, and these microtubules are formed of a protein, special protein that is known as the tubulin. This then what is the function of this microtubule? This microtubules will provide the structural support to the platelets, and they are also presence of canaliculi. If canaliculi, open canalicular system, you can see here, this is the cell membrane invaginations, and through these canalicular systems, the platelets, they release the calcium and other chemicals, yeah, other granules from the inside to the outside, yeah, from the outer to the inner. Okay, so the canalicular systems are there, just the invagination of the cell membrane. Okay, so what we are getting, they are having the cell membrane. Beneath the cell membrane, they are having the which providing the structural support to the platelets. They are generally the microtubules are there. They are having the canalicular system which secretes the calcium and as well as other granules from the interior to the exterior, and also they are having the two types of specific granules. One is your alpha granules and another one is your dense granules. Okay, so alpha granules, they contain certain factor like your von Willebrand factors. Von Willebrand factors, the abbreviation is VWF. Okay, so platelets are having the two specific type of granules. One is your alpha granules and second one is your dense granules. Okay, so alpha granules contain certain factors. For example, first is your von Willebrand factors. Second one is your PDGF, that is the platelet derived growth factor. They are also having the platelet factor 4. They are having the thrombostenin. They are having the thrombospondin. Okay, so these type of factors, they are generally present inside the alpha granules. Besides this, they also contains the platelets. They are also containing some contractile protein, like your in case of the skeletal muscle, what you are getting the contractile protein, that is your actin and myosins, which help in the contraction process. Okay, so like that, the platelets, they are also having the contractile proteins like your actin and myosin, which help in the contraction process. Okay, so besides these alpha granules, they also contains the dense granules. These dense granules, they contain the ADP and as well as the calciums. Okay, so platelets, what types of granules present in the platelets? One is your alpha granules and second one is your dense granules. Alpha granules contains the platelet derived growth factor, PDGF, von Willebrand factor. So these factors are having certain function. Okay, so they are stored inside a granules that is generally classified as one is your alpha and another is your dense granules. Also, besides these, the platelets, they contains the platelet activating factor. PAF, abbreviation is capital PAF, capital A, capital F, platelet activation factor. These platelet activation factors are, then what is the function of this platelet activation factor, function of the von Willebrand factor, function of this thrombospondin, function of this your thrombostenin. Actually, what they cause, this platelet activation factor, when they will be activated, when the platelets, after the activation of the platelets, then that will undergo the process of various steps, step by steps, and that will initiate the synthesis of a by a particular enzyme that is known as thromboxane synthetase. With the help of this enzyme, that will produce the thromboxane A2. So what I have discussed in the previous slide. So whenever there will be any injury, minor injury to the blood vessels, to the endothelial damage will be there. And when there will be exposure of the collagen, exposure of the subendothelial collagen, subendothelial matrix, at that time, this first mechanism of hemostasis is there will be a vasoconstriction, and this constriction can be possible by a chemical secreting from the secreted from the platelets, that is the thromboxane A2. So now I have discussed this thromboxane A2, how these are actually produced. Okay, so whenever there will be activation of the platelets, after the activation of the platelets, thereafter there will be secretion of the platelet activation factors. These platelet activation factors will activate the, so you can write the mechanism is how the thromboxane and the prostacyclin are produced by the activation of the platelets. Okay, this is a very important mechanism by which the thromboxane A2 and prostacyclin are produced by different steps. So the first process is there should be the activation of the platelets first. Then there will be secretion of the platelet activation factor, which are stored inside the platelets. Then these platelet activation factors will activate the phospholipase C. This platelet activation factor will activate the phospholipase C. This phospholipase C activates the membrane phospholipid. The platelet cell membrane, they are made of the phospholipid, the phosphatidylcholine, to convert it to the inositol triphosphate IP3 and diacyl glycerol. Okay, so after the activation of platelets, after the secretion of the platelet activation factor, which enzyme will be activated? That is your phospholipase C will be activated. Phospholipase C acts on which phospholipid? acts on phosphatidyl inositol to convert it to IP3, that is your inositol triphosphate, as well as formation of diacyl glycerol. Now diacyl glycerol will activate the another enzyme, that is your phospholipase A2. Okay, remember, first is your phospholipase C, which will be activated by which factor? That is your platelet activation factor. After activation of phospholipase C, what will be formed? Inositol triphosphate, IP3, and diacyl glycerol will be, DAG will be formed. After diacyl glycerol formation, this DAG again activates the which enzyme? Now phospholipase A2. This phospholipase A2 again acts on the another phospholipid, that is your phosphatidylcholine, to convert it to arachidonic acid. Okay, so phospholipase A2 acts on which membrane phospholipid? Now the membrane phospholipid is your phosphatidylcholine to convert it to arachidonic acid. Now arachidonic acid, in the presence of enzymes, that is your cyclooxygenase, it will form a PGH2. It is also known as cyclic endoperoxide. Okay, so in the presence of which enzyme cyclic endoperoxide will be formed? In the presence of cyclooxygenase, cyclic endoperoxide will be formed. Thereafter, in the presence of another enzyme, that is your thromboxane synthetase, this means your endoperoxide, that will be converted to thromboxane A2. And in the presence of another enzyme, that is your prostacyclin synthetase, this PGH2 will be converted to, will form the prostacyclin PGI2. So shall I repeat?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, so first, what we are getting, they are having the two types of granules: alpha granules, dense granules. They are platelets. They are having the platelet activation factor. Platelet activation factor will be secreting in which condition? Now, once the platelet will be activated, remember, this platelet activation factor will activate which enzyme? It will activate phospholipase C. I provide you the PPT notes. Okay, don't worry. So phospholipase C, this phospholipase C will act on which membrane phospholipid? That is your acting on the phosphatidyl inositol, and it will converting to IP3, that is your inositol triphosphate, and DAG, that is your diacyl glycerol. Diacyl glycerol will activate the another enzyme, that is your phospholipase A2. This phospholipase A2 acts on the another membrane phospholipid is there. There is a phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylinositol will be there. So phospholipase A2 acts on the phosphatidylcholine to convert it to the arachidonic acid. In the presence of cyclooxygenase enzyme, arachidonic acid will be converted to cyclic endoperoxide, PGH2. Okay, now PGH2 will be converted to either prostacyclin in the presence of prostacyclin synthetase, PGH2 will be converted to thromboxane, that is your thromboxane A2 in the presence of which enzyme? Thromboxane synthetase. Okay, now this what I've discussed, when there will be any minor injury to the blood vessel, there will be vasoconstriction, and this vasoconstriction can be possible by the secretion of this thromboxane A2 from the activated platelets. Okay, that will create the vasoconstriction, which decreases the flow of blood. Clear? So besides this, there are also different function of the platelets. They help in the process of platelet plug formation. These platelets also secreting the von Willebrand factor, which is required to attach with the subendothelial collagen. Subendothelial matrix. When there will be the injury to the blood vessels, the subendothelial matrix will be exposed, means the collagen will be exposed. So von Willebrand factor, which is secreted from the platelets. Remember, von Willebrand factor is secreted from the endothelial cell as well as from the platelet also. Okay, so whenever there will be any injury, the endothelial cells also secretes this von Willebrand factor. This von Willebrand factor has to be attached with the collagen. Okay, and thereafter the platelets, they are having the certain membrane glycoprotein receptors are there. The platelets are having the glycoprotein receptors. Okay, so just come to the slide. So there will be vasoconstriction. This slide, vessel injury will be there. Second one is your platelet plug formation. So this vascular spasm and the platelet plug formation, they are considered as the temporary hemostasis. You can see the last one, there will be formation of a blood clot. Yeah, formation of a clot. That is your permanent hemostasis. Okay, so vasoconstriction, that can be carried out by the vasoconstrictor like your thromboxane A2, which is secreted from the this one platelet coming in with injured blood vessels, release the ADP which attracts the platelets. The platelets release the thromboxane A2 and serotonin, which accelerate this vasoconstriction process. So my main motto is to show you that particular receptor. This one you can see. Suppose there will be there will be injury to the blood vessels. Okay, endothelium are there, endothelial cells are there, though rectangle separate structures are the endothelium. So whenever there will be any injury, so there will be collagen will be exposed. At that time, the van Willebrand factor, which is secreted from the platelets, as well as the van Willebrand factor, which is secreted from the endothelial cells, that will be immediately attached to this exposed collagen. Okay, now the platelets, they are having certain two types of glycoprotein receptor, GP receptors. GP receptor, G for glyco, P for protein. Glycoprotein receptor, generally classified as one is your GP1B and another one is GP2B3A. You can see in that particular slice. Okay, so one is your GP1B, the purple color that will be showing the GP1B receptor, and another is GP2B3A receptor. Did you get my point? Did you get my point? Say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Platelets are having the two receptor another receptors are there, but we have to focus mainly on two receptors, that is the GP1B and GP2B3A. Why these are important, I will tell. Whenever there will be any injury, you just see the collagen has been exposed. At that time, the endothelium, that will secrete the van Willebrand factor, VWF. This VWF has to be attached with this exposed collagen. After the attachment, then platelets, how the platelet plug will be formed, this is the mechanism. The platelets, they are having the two receptor. One is your GP1B and another one receptor is your GP2B3A. So what will happen after the attachment of van Willebrand factor to the exposed collagen, the platelets, they are having the GP1B receptor that will be immediately attached to this van Willebrand factor, which is initially has been attached to the collagen. Okay, so this GP1B receptor, that means this glycoprotein receptor which is present over the platelet, they are mainly required for the platelet adhesion. So the adhesion of the, so you can see the GP1B receptors are required for the platelet adhesion. Whenever there will be injury, the platelet plug formation can be carried out by the process. First one is your platelet adhesion, then there will be platelet activation, then there will be platelet aggregation. Third one is your release of certain granules from the platelets, thereafter platelet aggregation. So 3A mechanisms are there: A for adhesion, A for activation, A for aggregation. Okay, so what will happen? So you can see GP1B receptor, the platelets having that particular receptor, that is required for which process? Now it is required for the adhesion of the platelets. Once the platelet has been adhered to the van Willebrand factors through the GP1B receptor, thereafter the platelets will be get activated. Always remember, after addition of platelets to the van Willebrand factor with the help of a particular receptor, that is your GP1B, thereafter the platelet will be activated. So first one is your adhesion, second one is your activation. So once the platelet has been activated, then they will through the pseudopodia, they will change their shape, and they also express another receptor, that is your GP2B3A receptor. Once the platelets has been adhered, once after the adherence of the platelets, thereafter the platelets will be activated, and after the platelet will be activated, that then they will express the second receptor, that is your GP2B3A receptor. Now, how this GP2B3A receptor will be acting, will be attached to the another platelet, help in the process of aggregation. Now, what will happen? Once the platelets will be adhered, they will activate it. After the activation, they will release certain their presence of the particular granules, that is your alpha granules and dense granules. They will release the PDGH, they will release the thromboxane, they will release the your ADP, they will release your calcium. Okay, after the attachment and after the activation of the platelet. Okay, so once the platelet will be activated, then they will express this particular receptor. Which receptor? That is your GP2B3A receptor. And these particular receptors are only for platelet aggregation. So what will happen? This GP2B3A receptor has to be attached to the fibrinogen molecule. Okay, so it has to be attached with the fibrinogen, and this fibrinogen again attached with the GP2B3A receptor of the another platelets. Okay, so you can say these fibrinogens, they are mainly acting as a connecting link between two platelets. Okay, by connecting the GP2B3A receptor with each other. Okay, so don't be confused. Again, I am telling, after the injury to the blood vessels, endothelial cells secretes the von Willebrand factors. This BWF has to be attached with the collagen. After the attachment of the BWF with the collagen, the GP1B receptor present on the platelets, that has to be attached with the von Willebrand factor. After the attachment of the platelets, that will the platelets will be activated, and this platelet will release the. Just a minute, I'm coming. So after adherence, then there will be activations. After the activation of the platelets, they will through their pseudopodia, they will increase their surface area, they will change their shape, they will release their granules, they will expose their another receptor, that is your GP2B3A. This receptor has to bind with the fibrinogen, and this fibrinogen again has to attach with the another GP2B3A receptor of another platelets, and so that's why they will form a connecting link between two platelets. So that's why these GP2B3A are the glycoprotein receptors present over the platelets are known for the helpful for the aggregation. One receptor, that is 1B receptor for adhesion, and 2B3A receptor for the aggregation. So you have to remember how the platelet plug will be formed. The platelet plug will be formed by this process. First, there will be adhesion. Second, there will be activation. Third, there will be release of their contents. Fourth, there will be aggregation. So you have to write step by step. Adherence by the GP1B receptor. Then there will be activation. After adherence, there will be activation of the platelets. After the activation of the platelets, all the process you have to express, describe, that is your GP2B3A receptor has to be expressed. They will change their shape, and this GP2B3A receptor of one platelet has to attach to the another platelets of the having the GP2B3A receptor by with the help of a fibrinogen molecule. So fibrinogen here act as a connecting link between the two platelets. So that will be helpful for the aggregation. So besides this thromboxane, yeah, the thromboxane, they are also required for the increase the stickiness of the platelets, which help in the platelet plug formation. So these are all about the platelet structure, the platelet functions, and also the how the platelet plug is formed, and that will consider. Yes. Yeah, yeah. So that will be considered as the temporary hemostasis process. Shall I repeat here? You have understood? I will ask
Repeat,
after the
ma'am.
completion class.
Repeat.
Repeat. Which one I should repeat?
मैम
How?
ग्रैन्यूल जो रिलीज
Yes, yes.
मैम रिलीजिंग जो ग्रैन्यूल्स वगैरह सब रिलीज करे सही सही स्टेज
And acha, ठीक है जी. First, you just think what will happen first. If there will be any injury, you just tell me. If there will be any injury to the blood vessel, what will happen? First, there will be.
Vasoconstriction.
No, no. I am now telling about the platelet plug formation mechanism. Platelet plug formation mechanism.
प्लेटलेट एक्टिविटी.
Platelet. There will be exposure of collagen. Clear?
यस मैम.
First, second, there will be release of von Willebrand factor from the endothelial cells. Clear? This von Willebrand factor has to attach to whom? This von Willebrand
Collagen.
factor to the collagen. After that, the platelets having DAS receptor, which has to be attached with the VWF. The platelets having DAS receptor. That is your
GP1.
GP1B.
GP1B receptor. Yes, very good. So that's why these receptors, GP1B receptors, are for platelet adhesion. Okay. So after the addition of the platelet, then thereafter the platelet will be activated. And once it will be activated, it will be throwing its pseudopodia. It will release their contents. It will release the platelet-derived growth factor. It will release the ADP. It will release the calcium, etc., etc. Meanwhile, what I've discussed, the thromboxane, which is required for the vascular constriction, a constriction of the blood vessel, that is also important. So once the platelet will be activated, thereafter there will be release of which activation factor? That is your
Platelet activation.
activation factor.
Yeah.
Yes, platelet activation factor. This platelet activation factor, in that case, you have to write that particular step. So what we have discussed, the platelet activation factor will stimulate that particular enzyme, phospholipase C. Phospholipase converts to IP3D and diacylglycerol. Diacylglycerol will be activate the phospholipase A2. Phospholipase A2, then that will form the arachidonic acid in the presence of cyclooxygenase. This arachidonic acid form PGS2. Then there will be formation of the thromboxane A2. So thromboxane A2, besides helping in the vasoconstriction process, the skinniness of the platelet. Okay, so that's why whenever the platelet will be get activated, after that the thromboxane has to be released. Clear? The platelet thromboxane A2 has to be released, which increases the stickiness. So thromboxane A2 along with the ADP, that will increase the stickiness of the platelet, and so the platelet aggregation can be possible. So you can write here GP2B 3A receptor, that will helpful for the addition, and also you have to specifically mention about this thromboxane A2 and as well as the release of granules from the dense granule, that is your ADP, which also increases the stickiness of the platelet. So once the thickness will be will be there, then that will be helpful for the combining of the more and more platelets. So that will be helpful for the plug formation. Okay, so these are all about the platelet plug formation.
Ma'am?
And the yes.
Ma'am, hello. Ma'am,
Yes, tell me.
ma'am, cyclogenous enzyme of arachidonic acid, ma'am, ସେଇଠୁ ଟିକେ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ma'am, ସେଇଟା miss ହେଇଯାଇଛି.
କୋଉଠି confuse ହଉଛି ପଚାର.
Ma'am, arachidonic acid जो तापर next step रे convert हब in the presence of cyclooxygenase enzyme.
Okay. Good. Arachidonic acid formation hela in the presence of an enzyme, that is your cyclooxygenase. in the presence of cyclooxygenate, it will form the cycloendoperoxide. Yeah, it's also known as PGH2, capital P, capital G, capital H, 2. Okay, cyclic endoperoxide. Arachidonic acid will be converted to cyclic endoperoxide in the presence of which enzyme? Cyclooxygenase. Clear? Clear? Say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Then this PGS2 in the presence of two enzymes. You have to specifically mention that in the presence of thromboxane synthetase, this PGH2 will be converted to thromboxane A2. In presence of thromboxane synthetase, the PGH2 will be converted to thromboxane A2. And in the presence of prostacyclin synthetase, so two steps are there. From the PGH2, there will be formation of prostacyclin, and thereafter there will be also formation of thromboxane A2. So thromboxane A2 can be formed from the cycloendoperoxide, yeah, PGH2, with the help of which enzyme? That is your thromboxane synthetase. And the prostacyclin, that is your PGI2, will be formed from PGH2 with the help of prostacyclin synthetase. What is the function of this prostacyclin? Prostacyclin will prevent the platelet aggregation, whereas thromboxane A2 that will be required for the coagulation process. So whenever the clotting process will be over, at that time the prostacyclin now come into action. The prostacyclin, what is the main motive of the objective of this prostacyclin? This prostacyclin will prevent the formation of platelet plug by preventing the aggregation of platelets. Okay, so this is the function of the prostacyclin. It will be formed from which? It will be formed in the presence of which enzyme? That is your prostacyclin synthetase. From which enzyme? That is your which? That is your cyclic endoperoxide. That will be produced the prostacyclin in the presence of prostacyclin synthetase. Now I have discussed what is the importance of this prostacyclin. Whenever we are discussing about the tissue injury, whenever discuss about that endothelial cell has been damaged, at that time the platelet plug has to be formed. That platelet plug formation is requiring the thromboxane A2. So you have to specifically mention that the thromboxane A2 has been formed by the different mechanism, by the activation of platelets and releasing of the platelet activation factors. So total mechanism. Okay, so whenever this clotting mechanism means the platelet plug has been formed, now if there will be minor injury, remember when there will be any minor injury, at that time the vasoconstriction and as well as the platelet plug is essential. But whenever there will be major injury, this vasoconstriction and this platelet plug formation cannot seal the particular test of the blood bleeding. At that time the clot has to be formed. Clear? Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next come to the third mechanism of the hemostasis, that is your formation of blood clot. Before going to the formation of the blood clot, we should know about the different types of coagulation factor, blood clotting factor, like your factor 1 to factor 13, fibrinogen, factor 2 is thromboplastin, factor 3 is factor 2 is your prothrombin, factor 3 is your tissue thromboplastin, factor 4 is your calcium, factor 5 proacylidin, factor 6 is your generally it does not exist, factor 7 is your proconvertin, factor 8 is your anti-hemophilic factor. You will definitely get one multiple type of question from this factor, numerical form of this coagulation factor. That is, for example, factor 4, factor IV is also known as the DAS, that is your calcium. Okay, factor 9 is your Fistmas factor. Factor 10 is your Stewart factor. Factor 11 is your plasma thromboplastin antecedent. Factor 12 is your known as the Hasman factor, and factor 13 is your fibrin stabilizing factors. Okay, so you have to remember from the factor 1 to factor 13. These are the coagulation factor which help in the process of blood coagulation. They are helpful in the formation of the blood clot. Okay, So factor 1, you will definitely get one objective, one fill in the blanks, one MCQ from this factor, blood coagulation factor. Okay. So why it is named so? Factor 1, factor 2, factor 3, factor 4? Because these numerical names are given by the international committee to avoid the confusion. And the factor 1 means, that means this coagulation factor has been discovered first. That is the fibrinogen that has been discovered first. That's why they have been given the numerical name as factor 1, that is your fibrinogen. Okay. So up to 13, you have to remember this blood coagulation factor. Now this for the third mechanism, that is your permanent hemostasis, the secondary hemostasis, which are carried out by the formation of the blood coagulation, the blood clot, that can be carried out by the two mechanisms, that is your intrinsic mechanism of blood coagulation, second one is your extrinsic mechanism of blood coagulation. Definitely you will get one long question, a subjective type of question from this intrinsic and extrinsic mechanism. Okay, so in total mechanism of blood coagulation, the factor is essential. That factor is your prothrombin activator complex in both the mechanism, that is in the intrinsic mechanism as well as in the extrinsic mechanism. One factor is essential, that is your prothrombin activator complex, that has to be formed. After the formation of prothrombin complex factor, this prothrombin complex helpful for the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin. Okay, then thrombin will be helpful for the conversion of the fibrinogen to fibrin by cleaving the two polypeptide pairs. Clear? Now this fibrin, which is formed from the fibrinogen, that is fibrinogen is your inactive form, that has to be converted to the active form, that is your fibrin. And fibrin will be converted in the presence of which enzyme, that is your thrombin. And thrombin will be converted from the prothrombin in the presence of which factor, that is your this prothrombin activator complex. This complex has to be formed by both the mechanism, that is your intrinsic mechanism as well as extrinsic mechanism. Did you get my point? So common pathway is there, that is prothrombin has to be converted to thrombin. Thrombin should be converted to fibrinogen to fibrin. Then this fibrin which is formed, that will be initially very soft. It has to be this fibrin monomer which is formed, that will has to be polymerized and it will form a fibrin threads. But initially these fibrin threads are very soft. So that has to be stabilized by a factor 13, that is known as fibrin stabilizing factor. And this fibrin stabilizing factor, that is your factor 13, is essential for the stabilization of the fibrin thread in the presence of calcium. Okay, so cofactor is your calcium. Okay, so you have to remember this particular common mechanism, common process is prothrombin has to be converted to thrombin. Thrombin should be converted the fibrinogen to fibrin, fibrinogen molecule to the fibrin. Fibrin has to be polymerized first, then there will be formation of the fibrin thread, and this fibrin thread has to be stabilized, has to be made strong, so that it can entangle the RBC. It will form helpful for the formation of the clot. It has to be first stabilized, and that stabilization can be possible by a factor, that is your factor 13, that is fibrin. That's why the name is fibrin stabilizing factor, factor 13. Okay, but what we have discussed, for the formation of this total thrombin to prothrombin to thrombin, fibrinogen to fibrin, initial one is your prothrombin activator complex is essential. Okay, so that's why now we should read that how this prothrombin activator complex is formed. This prothrombin activator complex is formed by two mechanisms. One is your intrinsic and second one is your extrinsic mechanism. Now the question is, when and how the intrinsic mechanism is initiated and extrinsic mechanism is initiated. Okay, so what will happen, whenever there will be the blood will be come in contact with a collagen, with a glass surface, whenever the blood will be come in contact with a high molecular weight kininogen, okay, present in the plasma, at that time this intrinsic mechanism of coagulation will be initiated. Okay, but the extrinsic mechanism of coagulation, it is a very short process, but intrinsic mechanism, it is a long process. So whenever blood comes in contact with this factor, that is factor 1 is your collagen. Suppose it has been come in contact. Suppose it has been come in contact with the glass surface. Then it will initiate the intrinsic mechanism of coagulation. Okay, but the extrinsic mechanism of coagulation that can be possible when there will be any tissue damage will be there. Whenever there will be release of the certain protein like your tissue thromboplastin, at that time the extrinsic mechanism of coagulation will be started. Okay. So in each intrinsic and extrinsic, you will definitely get differentiate between this intrinsic and the extrinsic pathway. Intrinsic, these are act like a cascade mechanism. Cascade means suppose one factor is activated, then thereafter this activation factor inactive factor and causes the activation of the this inactive factor to active factor. So it will act in a sequential manner. Okay, so that's how we have notified it as it is acted in a cascade mechanism, a cascade manner. Okay, so what will happen? Intrinsic mechanism are long process, extrinsic mechanisms are short duration, so a short process. There will be activation. This intrinsic mechanism will be initiated whenever the blood come in contact with collagen, whenever the blood will come contact with the protein like your high molecular weight kininogen proteins. Whenever the blood comes in contact with the glass surface, at that time it will be the blood protein, blood coagulation will be initiated by the intrinsic mechanism process. But whenever if there will be any tissue damage will be there and any tissue protein like your tissue thromboplastin will come out, at that time instead of going to the intrinsic mechanism, it will be diverted from the intrinsic mechanism and it will be carried out the blood coagulation by the extrinsic pathway. Okay, so in the intrinsic mechanism coagulation, in the intrinsic pathway, first factor will be activated is your factor 12. But in the extrinsic pathway, there will be activation of the factor 7. So you have to mention that in intrinsic mechanism of blood coagulation, factor 12 has to be activated, but in the extrinsic pathway, the factor 7 has to be activated. Now what will happen in the intrinsic pathway? This factor 12 has to be activated first. This factor 12 activated factor 12 act on the inactive factor 11 and it will cause the conversion of the factor 11 to the activated factor 11. Then factor 11 will acted upon the inactive factor 9 to convert it to the active factor 9. This then factor 9, activated factor 9 along with the activated factor 8, calcium and phospholipid that will form a complex. So first they have to be converted to factor 9. Activated factor 9 has to be formed factor 9, activated factor 8, calcium and phospholipid that will form a complex. This complex will cause the conversion of the inactive factor 10 to active factor 10. Okay, now you are getting the activated factor 10, that is factor X. Okay, in the bracket it is generally designated as A for active form. Okay, now this activated factor 10 along with factor 5 activated form of factor 5 and calcium and phospholipid that will form the prothrombin activator complex. This is the exact what we are requiring in the intrinsic method, extrinsic method of coagulation. So first, this intrinsic pathway, there will be formation of which factor will be activated? You just tell me. In the intrinsic pathway, which factor should be activated first?
12.
Will be cause the conversion of the dash factor
11.
7 to factor 11. Then factor 11 causes the just omit the factor 10. Then it will causes the conversion of factor 9. Clear? Then factor 9 along with factor dash. Factor 9 along with dash.
8.
Activated factor 8. And dash.
Calcium, phospholipid.
Phospholipid we are getting from platelets. Okay. So phospholipid. So combined that will form a complex. This complex will cause the conversion of inactive factor 10 to active factor 10. That is your factor XA. Now how the prothrombin activator complex will be formed? You just tell me. Once you are getting the activated form of prothrombin factor 10, then how the prothrombin activator complex will be formed? Jaldi.
activated factor 5 and calcium and phospholipid.
Yes, very good. Activated factor 5 along with the activated factor 10 plus calcium plus phospholipid that will form the prothrombin activator. This prothrombin activator is essential for conversion of dash to dash. This prothrombin activator is
Prothrombin to thrombin.
Prothrombin.
into thrombin. Very good. So likewise, in case of extensive mechanism, which factor will be activated?
Factor 7.
7.
7.
Factor 7. Now, once the factor 7 will be activated, it has to act with the calcium, it has to act with the phospholipid, and also the thromboplastin, the protein which is secreted from the damaged tissue, that is your tissue thromboplastin. So, factor 7A plus calcium plus TPL plus your phospholipid that will form, that will together will activate the factor 10. Okay, so in extensive pathway, which factor will activate the factor 10? Tell me. In extensive pathway, which factor will activate the factor 10?
7. 7.
Factor 7.
Phospholipid plus calcium will be there.
Calcium plus thromboplastin.
Plus the tissue protein, the tissue factor, that protein, tissue thromboplastin. Okay.
Thromboplastin.
Okay, then that will activate the factor 10. Now the process is same. Once you are getting the activated factor 10 means in both the process, in the intrinsic as well as in the extrinsic, the second process is same. Activate factor 10 plus activate factor 5 plus calcium plus phospholipids, then that will form the prothrombin activator. Clear? That will form the prothrombin activator. Clear? Did you get my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. The prothrombin activator has to be formed by two pathways, that is your intrinsic pathway as well as the extrinsic pathway. But the process are different. Means the which factor has to be activated, it will depends on the factor. That is when the blood if I will ask the question, suppose the blood has been contact with the glass surface, then which factor, which pathway will be initiated? Extrinsic pathway or intrinsic pathway?
Intrinsic.
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 Yes. So whenever there will be, suppose any tissue proteins are has been liberated from the tissue, damaged tissue, then thereafter which pathway will be initiated? That is your extrinsic.
Extrinsic.
Intrinsic.
Very good. Main motto is to get the prothrombin activator. Okay, so these are all about the formation of the your prothrombin activator. Then there will be fibrin stabilization. Then there will be formation of the blood clot. But remember, after the clotting process will be over, after the mechanism has been over, it has solved the purpose. Then this clot has to be degraded. Yeah, it has to be dissolved. The clot has to be dissolved. Then how this clot will be, a dissolution of the clot can be possible. That can be possible by a mechanism, that is your thrombin thrombomodulin complex. One complex is there which is required for this clot dissolution. Now what will happen? The thrombin and the thrombomodulin is generally expressed on the endothelial cells. So thrombin and thrombin, the main function, what is the main function of the thrombin?
Fibrinogen to
Convert fibrinogen to fibrin.
Fibrinogen to fibrin.
It is helpful for the blood clotting formation, है ना? But in case of this thrombin react with the thrombomodulin, then it will be, the reaction will be, the means the mechanism will be just reverse. Means it will be act as an anticoagulation process. Means it will be, thrombin will be acted as an anticoagulant factor. Okay, so at that time when this thrombin thrombomodulin complex will be active, it will activate the activate some protein C and protein S present in the plasma. So thrombin thrombomodulin complex will activate the protein C. This one, fibrinolysis I am discussing, the clot dissolution. Okay, after the process is over, after the purpose has been made, and after that the clot has to be dissolved. Okay, so how the dissolution of the clot can be possible? Now it can be possible by a mechanism, another mechanism, that is your thrombin thrombomodulin complex. This thrombin thrombomodulin complex will activate the protein C and activate the protein S, which are present in the plasma. Besides this thrombin thrombomodulin complex that will inactivate the factor 5 and factor 8. This thrombin thrombomodulin complex that will inactivate the factor 5 and factor 8, which, as you know, this factor 5 and factor 8 are very essential for the blood coagulation to form a blood clot. During the whole process of the extrinsic intrinsic pathway, we have studied that factor 5 is important as well as factor 8 is important. So what will happen? This thrombin and thrombomodulin that will inactivate this factor 5 as well as the factor 8 and also activate the protein C and protein S. So after that activation of this protein C and protein S, it will inhibit the inhibitor for tissue plasminogen activator secretions. Okay, so the TPA, tissue plasminogen activator should be secreted, and this tissue plasminogen activator should be required for the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin. This plasmin also known as fibrinolysin, because this plasmin function is it has to dissolve the clot. Okay, and it can be possible when there will be secretion of tissue plasminogen activator. And tissue plasminogen activator will be secreted in which step? When there will be protein C and protein C will be activated. When this protein C will be activated, then there will be activation of this TPA, that is your tissue plasminogen activator. It will be secreted and it will cause the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin formation, and this plasmin will dissolve the clot. So that's why after the process is over, after the blood has been stopped, after that the clot has to be dissolved, and that can be possible by this mechanism. So you have to discuss about how the clot has been dissolved. Okay, so next class we will start with the new topic, new chapter, and also I have left some important points like your blood volume, plasma volume estimations, so that will be covered in your next class. Okay, so thank you all for attending class. I just want to see how many students are there.